Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Red for Anfield Index. It's got a bit of a feel of a Craig David song at the moment, if you think about it. It was a nice game on Saturday. We're relaxingly talking about it on a Sunday, and we're just starting to stress about the big game that's coming on Tuesday. So here to talk us all through that, give opinions on yesterday, on what's to come, is Mr. Grizz Khan. Now, I'm guessing, Grizz, and I'm wrong, it's Baltic here. It's Baltic where you are, isn't it?
It's Baltic, full stop. It seems, as we said, all over the UK. Unfortunately, I'm no different. I'm part of the Baltic gang. But yeah, look, it is what it is. It's one of those periods of the time where we look forward to watching Liverpool to warm us up and keep us what's the word, sort of distracted from the cold. So yeah, bring on more Liverpool, bring on more football chat.
Yeah, indeed, and bring on more results like yesterday. Now, as I'm asking you, people are going to jump on this. We've got to put context is key. That Accrington Stanley, who gave a good account of themselves, but are a League Two team. No disrespect to them at all. That they did a good job, and that they should have gone home proud with their fans as well. But for us, there was a lot to like about this game yesterday, wasn't there?
It was a feel-good game, wasn't it? Everything felt good about it. You could see, we always sell out, but it was a great turnout for the locals. Obviously, Accrington Stanley brought loads of fans as well. There was loads of warm embraces before and after the game. A lot of people knowing each other, players, sort of younger players. Trent with his former coach, apparently when he was 7 years old or something, the manager.
Yeah.
So, and as far as sort of performance and narratives and players needing minutes and players coming back from injury, all of that seemed to make sense. Obviously, the lineup was slightly surprising with the new Trent starts, and obviously people automatically start thinking, does that mean he's not starting against Forest? But then that quickly probably was dispelled when he only played an hour. So all in all, and obviously we may go through some of the scorers or non-scorers as the case may be. Everything worked out quite smoothly. It was just a good feel weekend, an extended training session that went very smoothly, I'd say.
Yeah, well described. A lot to like. And like you said, I think it's important to get into a few players specifically. And two to start with, probably a tale of two forwards in terms of minutes, in terms of performance, in terms of getting on the score sheet as well. I mean, it's an interesting one when we talk about Chiesa, when we talk about Nunez. So what we'll do, people, we're just going to play you a little clip from on a slot before we get going.
Yeah, Rio was lucky that Federico wasn't with us in the last 2 days because he was sick. Otherwise, Federico would have started, of course. Now we could play 45, so we could bring Dom 45 minutes, bring him out, and then Federico. I think it's nice to make your debut. And if you've made, for Federico, of course, not a debut, but if you played for this club already, then you want to score your first goal, especially in front of your own fans. And that's what he did now. So that's a good next.
So an interesting one, Grizz, because people jumped on this, didn't they, when Chiesa wasn't in the starting lineup? Like, Slot doesn't fancy him, he's off to Napoli. The whole machine went into overdrive, as it were, there. But as Arne Slot confirmed, if he hadn't have been ill, he would have started this one. But even from his 45-minute cameo, there was a lot to like from Chiesa, wasn't there?
There was. Look, we know his pedigree. His pedigree speaks volumes. He has played at the very highest level. We also know that he was a very low risk, high reward type signing, type fee, type player. And we also know that was based because his lack of football and the injuries he's had. So it was always going to be, let's see how we go with Chiesa type signing. Let's see. Let's give him some time. Let's get him up to full speed. And then if he can assist and be of any use to Slot in the final 4 or 5 months of the season, it will be probably some of the best money we've ever spent if it gets us over the line. And Dave, that's where we're at now. And people have to understand and accept this. I know everybody wants signings to just come in and blitz the whole place down and be a success from day one. It just doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that, especially when you've got a bit of an unknown quantity in A. We know Italians haven't fared very well in the Premier League, well, for us anyway. B, as I said about his injury situation, he's coming back from quite a serious injury. We had the brilliant Niva from Italian football podcast on my channel 2 days ago, and the brilliant Ben Sposak. If you don't follow them, make sure you do. And they were speaking about sort of Chiesa and his pedigree and sort of what stage he's at now. Two contrasting opinions. Niva thought the noise from Italy was that Liverpool are taking a huge risk here. And obviously Ben was saying that from his point of view, he still thinks he may be a success. This is what we get. The plan was always to bring him up to speed around Christmas, by Christmas, because he didn't have a preseason. Look, patience isn't patience is the easiest thing as Liverpool fans right now, but I think it's a patient thing with Chiesa. We gotta bite the bullet and see how he pans out now. I thought Slot. I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. I don't know what your opinion is. I liked the way Slot spoke about it. He said, "Look, he was fantastic and everything, but let's not get carried away. It was Accrington Stanley," and he said, if he hadn't missed training through illness or cold or something, then he would have started. So that dispels the theory that Slot doesn't favor him, doesn't like him. But it also sort of confirms that let's not get carried away. It was very good. He was threatening, and he's got the appetite for it. The way he spoke, the way he put his story up on the Instagram, he wants to be here. His agent has dismissed any talk of him going away in January for sure. And look, we can address it again in the summer. So let's just see how the next 4 or 5 months pan out. And if he scores 5 league goals that enable us to get over the line, my God, will that fee be some of the best money, as I said, we've ever spent?
Yeah, to me, it's a £10 million. I know it can rise to 12.5, I think, if any add-ons are triggered, but 12.5 million in modern terms of elite football, it's a huge amount in the real world. It's nothing in elite football. It really isn't. There is an element of a punt to this. And actually, if almost like a baseball-style relief pitcher for Mo Salah maybe gives him a rest, maybe gives a few others and rotational options, I think we judge that as an overall success. I think, patience is probably the key word. Like you said, it's a bit too early to jump to Chiesa judgments. However, Grizz, this player, Darwin Nunez, has been at the club for some time. And I'm just going to play you a clip that I thought was quite straight talking, shall we say, from God himself, Robbie Fowler. So let's just have a listen to this one, people.
And we're saying the same things now that I was saying 2-3 years ago. He's raw, he's this, he's that. I mean, we can't keep saying that. So for me, I actually, the more I see him, the more I think he's not a Liverpool player. Now, people might have a go at me for saying this, but, he works hard. You're not signing a player, or you're not bringing a player in because he works hard, because that should be a prerequisite anyway. You've got to come in, you've got to score goals. And I know he's a fan favourite for what he puts in. But at the time that we're talking now, you've got to perform better and you've got to do better in that Liverpool shirt.
Pretty straight talking there from God, wasn't it, Grizz, in all honesty? There's not really much wiggle room for interpretation where he said, not a Liverpool player. Are you in agreement with Robbie Fowler there?
When Robbie Fowler speaks about forwards and strikers, you have to stand up or sit down and listen. Robbie Fowler, for me, was the most natural finisher I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen quite a few. I loved Robbie Fowler. I think he was absolutely outstanding. Left foot, right foot, knew how to finish, when to finish. Of course, we know issues, injuries got the better of him, and very, very disappointing sort of final furlong of his career, but he was so good. The youngsters won't know how good he was because probably YouTube clips and edits and comps weren't a thing then. But let me tell you, he was outstanding. And if anyone is qualified and if anyone knows what it takes to be a striker at the very highest level, and for Liverpool especially, it's Robbie Fowler. Dave, I don't think you'll be surprised to hear that I didn't disagree with a single word he said. I wasn't a Nunez supporter from the start. I wasn't a Nunez fan. I had watched him, especially when I knew we were in for him, and it was Klopp's first choice. And I did tweet it. I think it was my story, actually. I was the one who broke that Klopp wants Nunez straight after the Champions League final. I found out. I've never, ever not wanted him to succeed. I wanted him to succeed, sorry. I backed him. Anyone who plays for Liverpool, you back him to the hill. When he wears that Liverpool shirt, you support him like he's one of your own. But Robbie's right, and you're right. He's been here a long time now, and he's been part of a successful attacking unit. We haven't struggled to create chances. We haven't struggled to score goals, Dave, and that's key. That is very key. You can be part of a dysfunctional attack, and then the blame that's been solely sort of placed on you is unfair. So, for example, Arsenal aren't functioning amazingly in attack. Man United, even Man City, you could say, but we're not that team. We've created chance after chance after chance for him and for others. We have scored goals aplenty. He just doesn't score enough. He just doesn't convert enough. You know, I hate the term chaos maker. I want a goal scorer, not a chaos maker. And I just think we're nearing the end of his time. In fact, I'm pretty certain that we're nearing the end of his time. And that's fine. We don't have to, not everyone has to be an amazing success or whatever. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame because the money that invested, time that's invested. But no problem. It's fine. We move on. And I think we will in the summer. Lots of talk about now. I think it's ludicrous to think that we'd let him go now, unless obviously we get a ludicrous offer. But in who's really going to give us a ludicrous offer in January, Dave? I just don't see it happening. But look, I basically, in a nutshell, a long-winded answer. I'm so sorry. I just don't see him having a future here past the summer.
And to be fair, I can't disagree with anything that you said there. The sample size is extensive now. That there's not really too much else that can be said on that. I did want to ask you about potential interest, and you mentioned their ludicrous offer because there are reports there that Al Hilal, a Saudi club, are interested. I know you've tweeted about this morning as well. Heard anything about it? Think there could be anything in this at all?
So this is a weird one because as soon as I tweeted that, someone that I do trust and speak to said otherwise. But I spoke to someone from Al Hilal directly. They reached out to me actually and said, "Can you dispel this theory or story? Because we're not in talks with Liverpool over Darwin Nunez." As soon as I tweeted it, someone WhatsApp me, messaged me, who's very, very well known on Liverpool fan media and Anfield Index as well. That's all I can say. But and he said he thinks that there is interest via agents. So look, it is what it is. I can imagine, I can envisage plenty of interest in him in the summer, and possibly sounding out now. But you know, we know the links with Al Hilal is obviously through the coach, Jorge Jesus, his former manager at Benfica. And the person that I spoke to, as I said he wants to play for his former coach, but that Liverpool are asking ridiculous amounts of money, and they've offered him a ridiculous wage. As I said, people from Al Hilal said no interest in him as of now, but I think there may be plenty of interest from that part of the world in the summer, along with maybe a few other European clubs. And obviously people automatically say, well, how much do we want for him? How much do we value him at? It's a difficult one, Dave. It's a difficult one. I don't know what I'd accept. I don't know what I think. I do know what I think. Sorry, that'd be stupid if I didn't know what I think. But I don't know what's realistic. I don't know what your opinion is on it. I don't know what's a realistic value for Darwin Nunez. What would you look to accept, for example?
This is a tough one because if I think, and I'll be deadly honest on how I see it, for Darwin Nunez right now, I think anything north of 40 million pounds is viable and should be considered, to be honest. However, we know that the Saudi clubs are not short of money. So I suspect Liverpool, if that comes in, will be looking to pry that well north. Maybe it would not surprise me if, knowing how our sharpshooters work, it starts with a double negotiation. But again, it's what will people pay for him? Will they do it now? And naturally, Grizz, that stays into who's available. Will there be replacements? But yeah, we will see what Darwin, because we do want to yesterday, people, and two youngsters, Grizz, two absolute youngsters who were shining. One started, one came off the bench. Young Rio, and just I've put it on the screen there, people, if you want to read this. This is from Diogo Jota. It's on the official website talking about young Rio's debut, saying, "We know about his ability to go 1v1. We tried to give that space to him. I think their team knew as well, as they double and tripled up sometimes, which was not easy. But he's such a young lad, and making his debut is obviously a special day for him. I hope he enjoyed it, and he'll only get better." Now, before we come to Rio, I really love this clip. I think it says so much, people. Just let's hear from Jayden Danns afterwards for 30 seconds or so.
I'm really grateful to the manager.
You want to be part of it, and that's the desperation for all young players now at the moment.
100% desperate to be part of it, but like I said, opportunity comes, try and take them and just keep my head down, humble and keep working.
What do you remember about the goal?
Not much, to be honest, but yeah, I mean, I slid Freddy in. Freddy took the shot on, bounced back to me, and I just smacked it in the corner. So yeah, buzzing with that, to be honest. Yeah.
You don't.
Could there be a more Scouse interview, to be honest, just in the way it's done, Grizz? But young Rio, Jayden Danns yesterday, so much to like about those two, wasn't there?
Look, we mentioned these two because they were the standouts, but I was so impressed with young Tyler Morton. I was so impressed with McConnell when he came on as well. There's so much to speak about from our academy and sort of the talent coming through. And look, I mean, let's start off with Rio. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, you're talking about a 16-year-old playing against absolute lumberjacks of players from League Two. They were very physical with him. They doubled up on him, and he absolutely handled it. The quickness of feet are a thing to behold. The way his speed off the mark, it very much reminds me of a very young coming through Raheem Sterling, who, by the way, was of a similar age, similar build, similar style. I actually think this kid Rio may have a quicker feet than Raheem Sterling, which is saying something. I think Raheem was, without doubt, one of the strongest players pound for pound that I ever saw. So, but Rio stood up well to the physical side of things yesterday. You aren't going to get many more physical challenges than sort of the Accrington Stanley lads yesterday, which was, again, an amazing experience for him. I think the kid has a bright future. Of course, we need to relax. Of course, we need to calm down, because we know so many we've had. I'm going to confess and I'm going to admit that I was a massive Jordan Ibe fan. I thought Jordan Ibe was the 100% going to be the answer.
Yeah,
well, there you go. So listen, we have to bide our time. We have to give them time, give them space. I genuinely think we have an amazing coach right now in terms of development of youngsters. I genuinely believe that. I think he's very level-headed on his slot, and he doesn't get carried away. He doesn't get too emotional, and says how it is. And he says, look, fantastic debut, brilliant, but it was only Accrington Stanley. I love the way he throws in a positive with a leveler, if you know what I mean, just to keep heads on shoulders, firmly on shoulders. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, look, Rio was amazing. And then we go on to this fella. I tweeted it as well this morning. I said, I just got to see it this morning, actually, the full interview. And do you know what, Dave? I was beaming with a massive smile. I think it's fantastic. I thought his interview was fantastic. The way he came across, calmness, maturity. And do you know what I really loved as well? I mean, of course, I loved his maturity and confidence without sounding arrogant as some young lads can. I thought he was very mature in his answers. I loved the joy, natural joy on his face when they spoke about Rio.
Yeah.
When they were speaking about Rio, and I loved the way he just, he was so happy for him. It was natural. It wasn't fake, and you love that camaraderie, that team sort of ethics between themselves, which has been brought up through the academy. Of course, I know Rio's only been there a few months, but it just shows, how quickly they've seemed to have bonded. And yeah, look, the future, fingers crossed, and the future is in great hands if these two are anything to go by.
I was going to ask you about Dan's future, because Arne Slot mentioned this afterwards to say, we'll have to see. And I get after yesterday that, I mean, it was a great cameo and there's people already saying like he could have an impact in the first team. Do you think that is true? Is it too early for Jadon Danns, or is a loan move, do you think, a possibility?
I think a loan move is a probability as opposed to a possibility. I think he was very close pre-injury to a loan move. I think that would have gone through if he didn't pick up that back injury. He got a very nasty back injury just before, that was supposed to come off. So I still think that's the plan, and I think that's the right plan. Of course, the clamour is to say throw him in there. He's our wild card. Do you remember Makeda from Manchester United, a similar wild card? And so people are suggesting that he could be our version of that. And I get it. We can, as fan bases, get carried away, especially like we spoke about Nunez not being the wild card that we anticipated or thought. But I think I'd say a loan is right for him. He needs to play 20 to 30 games next season. Yeah. And then we'll have a much better sample size and an understanding where he's at. But it'd have to be under the right coach in the right circumstances, because the development so far has been brilliant and we must not stunt that. It has to be continued. And so, and we're very good with loans. We've proved with Doak and Elliot, and sort of we know we choose our loans very well. Well, except Stefan Bajcetic, who seems to have been a bit of a bad one. But hey, but yeah, I think a loan's a right move. I don't know what you guys think that are watching and listening, or you, Dave, but I personally do think a loan is a right move, and he'll continue to grow. And do you know what I loved about him, Dave? I don't know if you remember what he said as well. He goes, "I'm very young. I'm not impatient. I know I've got a long way to go. I'm just enjoying myself and trying to work as hard as I can and learn." Loved it. He said, "I'm young," and I loved it. He didn't demand anything or entitled to anything. He goes, "No, I know where I'm at." People were saying, "What's your next development?" He goes, "I just got to learn. I just got to work hard and play." And I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've loved what we've seen. We love the humbleness. It is important to remember in the nicest way, the goals are coming in the FA Cup. It's Southampton last year. It's Accrington Stanley League 2. Massive leap to be a first teamer for Liverpool in the attack, especially when you look who will be up against. But as people are put in, there is a lot to like about this young Scouser. And speaking of Scousers, Grizz, the main Scouser was captain yesterday, wasn't he? Trent was in the team, which was surprising to quite a few people. People then suggesting, as you mentioned, does that mean Bradley's going to start at Forest and various things? Let's just have a little listen to what Arne Slot said about Trent afterward.
I think it's a bit known for everyone how our flight was during that night. So we couldn't land here in Liverpool, so we had to go to Birmingham. We came home really, really late, and for me, it was too big of a risk to play a player that had a hamstring issue 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, 2 days after the Tottenham game. Yeah, and then the only other available fullback is Trent. And as a result of him playing, I think it was good for him to play again in our own stadium, to feel the reception. Is that the way you say it? Reception of the fans again. That was already fantastic when we played Tottenham. And that was also, again, I think, special for him today. And that will only help him. And
pretty much Arne Slot answers it. The travel disruption probably rules out Connor Bradley from starting. Trent, the only other available fullback, so he plays Grizz. And by the way, does he play? And what a hit that is for that goal.
I mean, it's if there's ever a trademark finish, that's a trademark strike, I should say, not a finish, trademark strike, where his ability to gain such power and sort of curl at the same time with so less backlift. And then you realize that he's a right back. Like, you say all that and you'd think, oh, you're describing a Kevin De Bruyne or a Steven Gerrard or, excuse me, someone in attack or midfield. Then you remember, well, hold on, that's our right back. It's a unique trait, Dave. Unique trait. He's a unique fullback. I don't care what anyone says. He's a generational passer and striker of a ball. I've not seen many like him in terms of his ability to strike a ball, to pass, break lines, switch play, left foot, right foot. We know sometimes he overdoes it, or sort of when he's having a rough patch, he doesn't simplify things. And there's criticisms, of course, with his defensive side at times. Taking all that into consideration, there's not a player in world football that doesn't have negative sides to him. But my God, when you look at the pros and positives of this, guys, they outweigh any negative anyone can think of. I just thought it was a nice touch from Arne Slot to make him captain. I do like the psychology behind it. He's just touched upon it there very vaguely in terms of how the crowd would be receptive of him. And I think it's all part of the dance because, as you know, I believe he will be staying. And I think this is just a charm offensive that is continuing at Liverpool Football Club. And I think Arne Slot is the head of that charm offensive, behind the scenes, front of the scenes. And let's hope that this charm offensive pays off and he extends, because I certainly don't want him to leave for Madrid.
No one does at all. And naturally, it is important that we do still talk about contracts, January and all those things. And we mentioned God before. He was quite direct again with it and honest on his thoughts yesterday, saying that two will go. I think it's fairly obvious. Mo will stay, and I think Virgil will stay. I as a player, but we'll see. I mean, I'm praying like you that he absolutely does stay, no doubts about it. The mood music does have a feel, though, that there's worry, isn't there? And it almost just crept into the stadium last weekend against United when he had a terrible game. And it's important to say that because he was bad the other weekend, that you could hear the noise from the stands. That's one thing we can't afford either way. And are you getting to the stage where you think either or, whatever's happening, Trent may need to come out soon, Grizz?
Yeah, I think so. But then you fast forward 7 days and suddenly look at the mood music. Suddenly he's seen touching the badge. There's clips of him touching the badge when he sat down in what game was it, when he was substitute last week when Bradley started a game. Spurs, wasn't it? Basically?
Spurs, wasn't it?
So there was pictures of Trent hitting the badge when he's sitting down on the subs bench, the way he acknowledged the crowd humbly, the way he waved at everyone, the way the crowd sang his name, the way he embraced everyone at the end, smiley, chirpy. The mood music suddenly the body language experts would suddenly suspect, hey, what do we have here? The way Arne Slot is speaking about him, hey, what's going on here? Is there a sudden change or a slight change in mood opinions? So look, every time there's a bad game played by Trent Alexander-Arnold, there will be scrutiny. He'll be scrutinized. He's probably the most scrutinized footballer right now in the Premier League, I'd say. All eyes are on Trent Alexander-Arnold in what he will do. And it's up to him now how he handles it in his camp. Liverpool, as I said, have put the onus on him, it seems. The Madrid side have gone quiet. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but this last 4 or 5 days, not a whimper. So I wonder what has caused their silence, because they're the type of club and they have the type of media that don't shut up. When they're on a case of a player or a coach, they do not shut up. They do not waver. It seems to have gone quiet. Again, we don't know what that quietness means. Is that quietness a positive or a negative? Again, his performances have to perk up, and they were. That little cameo was against Spurs was brilliant. Yesterday, I thought he was fantastic. Of course, Accrington Stanley only context, like you said at the start, but he can only get better. He can only improve his performances and show that he's 100% committed to Liverpool. Now, whether that's long term as well, and whether he needs to come out and say it, personally, I believe it can't go past January. Personally, I believe he has to clarify. But many would say, well, as long as Slot knows and the management know, then we don't really need to know, as long as he's giving 100% on the pitch. And I see that theory as well, Dave. I'm going to be honest. As long as Slot and Edwards and Hughes know what the status quo is, then we just have to demand 100% commitment from him until otherwise. And that's my state of mind and state of play, I think.
Yeah, and similar in a way. As long as we don't see the lack of effort and lack of application we saw against United at times, the questions will sort of keep going. But as long as he turns in performances like he has in the last two, we will see what will happen. And for all the frenzies over contracts as well, Grizz, we can't do a pod without about this man, because there's been about approximately 86,000 comments already about this guy in the chat panel, Khvicha. And you know the story. David Ornstein comes out, Paul Joyce backs it up. And then yesterday, Antonio Conte says, yes, he has asked to leave. Now, I know you've tweeted about this, saying you don't expect him to make a move for us in January. People are desperate for us to step in, because this is an elite left winger that we're talking about as well. Are your hopes pretty minimal with this from what you know?
So look, David Ornstein and Paul Joyce, we know, are the absolute tier ones when it comes to Liverpool news, and both amazing, brilliant professionals and journalists, right? They don't put out pieces until it's very, very well sourced by at least one source. We know how they operate. And so for them to suggest that we are monitoring the situation was absolutely 100% true. And people always say, do you know, one of the funniest things on social media is, because I didn't know about it until they put it out. And then I ask people that I speak to on a regular, and they said, it's true. We have made an inquiry. So that's how things work. When you go back and you ask people and say, Ornstein and Joyce have just put this out, is there any truth behind it from what you know? And the guys that I speak to said, yes, we made an inquiry. So we are monitoring it. But then I was told by the same people that we're very unlikely to follow it up in January. And I put that out there. But again, there's conflicting stories and interests, because, again, someone very close to Anfield Index, very close, very well known to Anfield Index, I can't reveal the name for his own, says we absolutely are still in the picture for him. I said, oh, okay. He said, I just saw your tweet, and I just wanted to let you know that we are still in the picture. I said, amazing. I hope my source is completely wrong. I love it, because I would love nothing but to be in the picture for this fella. Yeah. I love him, Dave. I think he's too. I think, again, we've done a massive show. If people haven't checked it out, go and check out my channel on Football Carnage. We done a brilliant show with an Italian journalist and Ben Bosak, who you guys will know. And all the noise and rumor at the moment is that he's close to PSG. He's agreed personal terms, but that PSG are having issues raising the fee for him. We know De Laurentiis of Napoli is probably the hardest man to deal with in world football, and he wants minimum of, I think it was 80 million euros, which is about 60 million pounds, something like that. Now, the rumors and stories coming out are that it was, PSG are struggling to raise that, which gives you hope that Liverpool are able to raise that. I was also led to believe, people I know hate that language and terminology, but I was also told that if Liverpool came in for him, he would choose Liverpool. Like, he actually would love to play for Liverpool, but that we need to be positive and quick in our movement. So let's see. That's where he's at. I don't hold your breath, Douglas says. And look, that's me personally. But as I said, I could be wrong. It won't be the first time I'm wrong, and I'll take you on the chin. I've been told that we won't pursue it this January, but things change, and hopefully it does. And the guy that's known very well to Anfield Index, and if it comes out, we'll mention his name. He said, "Don't mention my name," so I won't. Suggests that we are still in the picture. So look, it's one of those ones where we just don't know, because even Ornstein and Joyce have gone quiet, haven't they, since that original article and pieces. Fabrizio Romano seems to be the most vocal about this, and he seems to suggest.
Yeah.
And Matteo Moretto from the Italian journalist, who you'd think would have good links, who's actually a very good journalist, seems to think that PSG are edging very, very close to this deal. But as we've seen before, Dave, in the cases of Gakpo, in the cases of Luis Diaz, we know if we sweep in, then things can get done very, very quickly, because we still have a major pull over the likes of PSG.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And listen, we can all have predictions. We're all happy to be wrong if elite players end up at our football club. We have no problem with that at all. And the other thing I think people are just missing, both Ornstein and Joyce are quite clear in their articles, people, that if there is any chance of this happening, one of the senior forwards will have to leave. So there's quite a few dominoes to fall into place. We will have to see what happens. The only final thing I want to ask you about the January window is, I think there seems to be some confusion, Grizz, because I keep hearing people saying PR. And I think maybe just to clarify, it is not good PR for the club to be linked with players and then not get them. That's the opposite of good PR, isn't it? Realistically, it's not a good look.
Yeah, look, I'm baffled, Dave. I'm absolutely baffled with these theories amongst Twitter. I get the frustration. I even get parts of the outrage. I don't completely get the outrage, and I'm not an advocate of just being outraged all the time. But I get the frustration. And me and you get frustrated when we speak about it in private, like, oh gosh, I hope we do something or whatever. But to suggest that this is PR makes no sense, because I am very, very limited in terms of my vocabulary and knowing what terms and words mean. But guys, what does PR actually mean according to you guys? What does PR actually mean when you check up PR in the Oxford and Cambridge dictionary? PR is supposed to be positive PR. Which company, which establishment would put out bad PR for their establishment and said company? It makes absolute zero sense to put a story out there that is fake, that won't happen, and you continue to be seen as not overcoming or sort of pursuing that story and being successful in the said story. That is not good PR. That makes zero sense for any establishment or said company. So I don't get that aspect. Not once did Joyce or Ornstein say we will bid for him or we are favourites for him. We just said we are interested in him. And of course we have interested in him, and we are interested in him, or we may have been interested in him. But look, sometimes deals are maybe further down the line, or sometimes, like you said, we can't shift one of our own right now. so many aspects of in play. I'm just reading a report from a very known journalist in France who suggests that should indeed sign for PSG next week, 65 million euros plus bonuses, total package of 80 million euros. And this is again another reliable French journalist. He's not sort of one that's just on Twitter making up rumors day and night. So look, maybe my source was correct for once. He said we won't be pursuing it. But as I said, it's not something to be outraged all the time about, and certainly it's not PR. They didn't just put it out there just to sort of, I don't know what the theory is suggesting. Are they suggesting that to distract people from the contracts? Well, no, because the contracts are not resolved yet. How can you distract from the contracts? The contracts are staring at us in the face. We have three of the greatest players Liverpool have of the last decade or forever. That contracts are not resolved as of yet. So it's not a distraction because that will always be there. I don't understand it myself.
No, I don't. And for all the talk about players coming in, and contracts, we want our elite three signed up. That is the priority. And even more important, Grizz, in the short term, we mentioned it and we should get around to it. Nottingham Forest on Tuesday. For all the talk over transfers, and we're not saying ignore it, people, let's just be clear. There is a title to be won. We are facing a team who are very measly, have only conceded 19 goals like ourselves. They are the surprise package. They are third in the league, only on goal difference, 6 points behind us. This is almost our game in hand. I mean, we can't undersell just how big and important Tuesday night is, can we, Grizz?
How can we? Look at that record. Look at that record. Impeccable. Last 5 games, all we see is greens, along with Newcastle, probably the most informed team in the Premier League right now. And that includes Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal. We are not to take them lightly at all. Arne Slot will absolutely not take them lightly at all. And the reason is not only their current form and what they've shown so far, is also that they are the only team to beat us in the Premier League so far. Second game of the season, they've done an absolute job on us. Restricted us to probably the least amount of chances we've created in a game this season. Maybe, I don't know officially, but I'm just guessing at the top of my head from memory, from remembering watching the game. This has very much of a feel of, Dave, in our league title winning season, when we went to Leicester City and they were sitting pretty in second, and all the Premier Leagues and the world's eyes were on Liverpool. This is where they're going to falter. I believe we had just come back from the World Club Cup, right? Something like that. And everyone has thought, oh, the fatigue, the traveling, the tiredness. Leicester City were buzzing at the time, and we put an absolute clinic in, Dave. This has all the makings of a statement game. Now, I'm going to say if we win, I think I'm ready to have. I'm ready to grasp that league title with one hand. I think I'll have one hand on that league title if we win at Forest. That's how highly I value this game and I rate this game in terms of importance and relevance. I think Arsenal and Chelsea, or whoever you want to else say, will have their eyes on this fixture and say, this is a fixture that Liverpool are possibly going to drop points. It will be a dagger to their hearts and minds if we walk away with 3 points from the Forest ground. It will be a monumental effort. I have to accept that and take that. But we are capable, Dave. We will have all 7-8 of our players refreshed and coming back. And we know they're a great outfit. But if we have anything about us, and if we want to be Premier League champions, Dave Davis, we have to go and get, at the very least, a draw. Because I'll be happy. It may not be, but I personally will be. But if we win, that's a statement win and a half, Dave.
Yeah, it's a weird one, like you say. people will be, you can't accept a point. I know people will be saying that as we're discussing it now. Like, a point away at Nottingham Forest, when you look at the context of the season, and to open up a 7-point gap over Arsenal at this stage is not a bad result. I get it's not perfect. It's not exactly what people want. And I know this is the on a slot mental health derby, because you know he thinks about this game day and night all the time, and it's big. And I agree, Grizz. 3 points here is monumental. 3 here breaks spirit of Arsenal and the challenges, because they look and say, Christ, that's a 9-point gap. We're not going to be able to strengthen. Where are we going to overcome these points? Where are we going to make them up, etc.? So it is absolutely huge. That we can't undersell this, like we said at the start. I suppose the only final question I have for you.
Can I reply to Shadow in the chat? He says, bring it up, because we've got, we always good to bring up comments. Grizz is happy with anything. Fence sitter. I mean, I don't know what Shadow just listened to for the last 3 minutes of my monologue, where I said, at the very least a draw, right? So I didn't even mention loss, because I'd be mortified with a loss. I would hate it. So how am I happy with a loss? Shadow, please try to listen and keep up with the chat before throwing rubbish in the chat. But anyway, we move on.
Yeah, and I suppose line up, there's a lot who didn't play, gives you a big clue about who will start. And you probably fancy that front three's got Salah, Gakpo, and Diaz as the false 9, probably written all over it. The fact Jota plays the full game, Nunez is suspended. So it's probably just a case of asking you about a few positions, Grizz. Still expect Trent to be right back. As Arne Slot said, it was more about not risking Bradley. We expect Trent to be there at the City ground, don't we?
I'd say so. I think there was strong indications that the way he only played an hour was for rhythm and confidence, and I think there was a good move. Trent looked happy about himself, better about himself, felt probably better, especially with the strike, with the goal as well. Clean sheet, I know he's Accrington Stanley, just his passes seemed crisper, everything seemed to be fine. You'd expect him. He's going to have an absolute tall order up against Hudson-Odoi or Elanga, depending on who plays on that side. I'm not sure if they sometimes switch, but I think it's Hudson-Odoi that's predominantly on that left, and we know Hudson-Odoi is the one that scored the goal, the winning goal. So yeah, look, I'm not sure on Konate's situation. Does anyone know if he was asked about Konate in the post-match or anything? No one even mentioned it. Was anything? He was scheduled to start and obviously didn't continue to start. Either an illness or change of heart. I'm hoping it was a change of heart and mind as opposed to any type of injury. But let's see. Konate, I mean, Kwanzaa stepped in yesterday, looked all right. Endo hasn't put a foot wrong. Would we risk Endo if there's no Konate and if there's no Gomez? Do we go for Kwanzaa or Endo? That could be a debate. I suspect Robertson comes back in because Tsimikas played the whole game. And then I think it's fairly obvious, the front three. And I think it's also fairly obvious that Szoboszlai steps in for Jones. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. He's growing his hair long. He's going for the Milan Barros effect, but it was good to see Szoboszlai back yesterday. I think especially the last few games. I mean, I don't know why people have been going in on Curtis Jones. He hasn't been great the last few games, but I love him as a player. I think he's got so many good qualities. Szoboszlai away from home is so important to the system. And I genuinely think, we'll see, we won't have long to wait, but that midfield three away from home of Grav Mack at the base with Szoboszlai pushing on are so important to what we want to do. So yeah, I am really, really hoping Szoboszlai starts. I suppose the final thing to appease the 86,000 various comments, what is your prediction for Tuesday night, Grizz Khan?
I think we win, Dave. I genuinely think Slot has earmarked this game as important as any other in the fixture list. You can talk about your Man Cities and your Arsenals and your Chelseas, but I think he's had this earmarked ever since game week 2, Dave. Ever since game week 2, and then obviously with the resurgence and the continuing great form of Forest, because that shows that wasn't just a fluke win at Anfield. They have continued to be very, very impressive. I think we raise it, Dave. I think it's time. We've had a little bit of a blip. We've had a little bit of a, I don't know what you want to call it. A blip, maybe a rough patch or an awkward patch, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Because some people are saying, oh, we're way too negative, and some may say, well, we're way too positive. Can't you see the glaring issues? I'd like to think I'm somewhere in between. I want to say there's glaring issues. I think there is issues. Me and Gags, if any of you guys watch our chat G&G, we had an amazing show on Thursday where he was so down and despondent, and I was so positive and upbeat, but we agreed to agree in the middle somewhere. You know, I said there are issues, but I think it's a lot of PTSD with the Liverpool fan base. This is a new setup. This is a new coach. This is a new mentality, fresh ideas, fresh thoughts. Let's give him a chance. Let's give him a chance to implement everything that he wants to implement. And then we can judge it afterwards. Let's not be so despondent and down right now. As I said, for the sake of Shadow, especially, I expect a win. But I won't be absolutely despondent and outraged if we get a draw. If we lose, I'll be very, very angry and sad. Let's just make that clear. But I expect to win, Dave.
Yeah, either way, it's got a very tight game written all over it, hasn't it? It's both teams, so you can see their people. Both conceded only 19 goals, pretty measly in defence. So, yeah, it feels really tight. Fingers crossed, whatever happens, it's a Liverpool victory. And the only thing to finish on, people, AI content, we have got loads out for you ever. I mean, in the last 24 hours, just to give you an idea there have been 11 pods gone out, from the transfer show to Scouted, match reaction, the Gags Tandem show afterwards. So there's plenty to get your tea stuck into, whether you're an audio, whether you're video, whatever suits you there. And articles galore are out as well at the moment. So please feel free to have a read, whatever your preferred poison for absorbing your content. Grizz, I'm guessing you've got a mental busy week coming up for you as well.
Life is mental. Life is busy at the moment. Yep. When Liverpool are busy and doing good things or things in general, then we tend to be busy. Absolutely in no way comparable to the work and amazing work that you guys are doing at Anfield Index. But hey, I'm doing my own little thing at the Big Six and Football Carnage. So I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe if you fancy some more content from me as well. But always a pleasure speaking to you as well on a Sunday morning.
Indeed. And for everyone who's listening, for everyone who's commenting, whether you were FSG out, as so many people seem to be in the chat panel, whether you are Khvicha in, whether you are titled maybe, whether you were a win, lose and draw, or whether you just hate us too, as it seems to be from some in the chat panel, thank you to you all for commenting. So there we are. It only leaves me to say one more thing. Grizz, for the time, the trouble, for the insight, it is much appreciated, sir.
No problem. Always a pleasure, never a chore.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was another Daily Red for Anfield Index.